There is a structure in Egypt that doesn't quite fit. It sits behind one of the most important temples in the ancient world. It's built with enormous stone blocks, far larger than those used in the temple beside it. And it lies partially underground, surrounded by water. At first glance, it looks ancient, but not in the way you might expect. Because this structure doesn't match the style, scale, or purpose of the buildings around it. And yet, it exists. This is the Osireion. So what exactly is it? Why was it built this way? And why does it feel so different from everything else in ancient Egypt? Where this structure exists. To understand why the Osireion stands out, we first need to understand its setting. The structure is located in Abydos, one of the oldest and most sacred cities in ancient Egyptian history. For thousands of years, Abydos was a religious center closely associated with the god Osiris. Osiris was not just another deity. He represented death, rebirth, and the afterlife. According to Egyptian belief, Osiris ruled the underworld and guided souls after death. Because of this, Abydos became a pilgrimage. People traveled from across Egypt to connect with Osiris, to participate in rituals, and to be symbolically linked to the afterlife. Over time, many pharaohs built temples there. One of the most significant is the Temple of Seti I. This temple is known for its detailed carvings, precise architecture, and classic New Kingdom design. It is elegant, decorated, and consistent with what we expect from Egyptian temples. But just behind it, something very different appears. The structure that doesn't match. Behind the Temple of Seti I lies the Osireion. At first glance, it looks unfinished, or perhaps older. Unlike the temple, the Osireion is built using massive stone blocks, particularly granite. These stones are enormous. Some weigh many tons. They are carefully shaped and fitted together with surprising precision. But what stands out is not just the size, it's the style. The Osireion has no elaborate carvings on its main structural blocks. A simplified, heavy appearance, a design that feels more functional than decorative. This contrasts sharply with the nearby temple, which is covered in detailed hieroglyphs and artistic reliefs. Even more unusual is the layout. At the center of the Osireion is a rectangular platform surrounded by a channel of water. Large stone pillars rise around it. The entire structure is partially below ground level. It doesn't look like a typical temple, it doesn't look like a typical tomb, and it doesn't clearly match any single category in Egyptian architecture. How it was built. Despite its unusual appearance, the Osireion is not beyond what ancient Egyptians were capable of. Egyptians had extensive experience working with stone, especially limestone and granite. They used tools made from harder stone, copper, and later bronze to shape blocks. Transporting large stones was a major challenge, but they developed effective methods using sledges, ramps, and coordinated labor. The granite used in the Osireion likely came from quarries in Aswan, located hundreds of kilometers to the south. From there, the blocks would have been transported along the Nile. Once at the site, they were positioned with remarkable accuracy. The precision of the stonework suggests careful planning and skilled craftsmanship. So while the structure looks unusual, it does not require unknown technology. What makes it different is not how it was built, but why it was built this way. Why it looks different. One of the biggest questions about the Osireion is why it looks so different from the Temple of Seti I. Most Egyptologists agree that both structures were built during the same period, around the reign of Seti I in the 13th century BCE. Inscriptions found within the Osireion support this connection. So why the contrast? One explanation is intentional design. The Osireion may have been built to resemble something older. Its heavy stone construction, underground placement, and minimal decoration could have been meant to evoke the earliest phases of Egyptian architecture. This would align with its symbolic purpose. Because the Osireion is strongly associated with Osiris, the god of death and rebirth. In Egyptian belief, Osiris represented the ancient past. He was not just a god of the afterlife, he was tied to the origins of life and the cycle of renewal. So creating a structure that felt ancient would make sense. The role of water. One of the most striking features of the Osireion is the presence of water. The central chamber is often partially flooded due to groundwater, but the design suggests that water may have played a symbolic role. In Egyptian cosmology, water represents the primordial state, the chaotic waters that existed before creation. From these waters, land emerged, life began. The central platform in the Osireion, surrounded by water, may represent this concept. It could represent the first mound, the place where creation began. At the same time, the underground nature of the structure connects it to the underworld. This creates a powerful combination: water to creation, underground to death and afterlife. Together, they represent the full cycle of existence. What it was used for. So what was the Osireion actually used for? The most widely accepted theory is that it was a symbolic tomb of Osiris, not a real burial site, but a ritual space, a place where ceremonies related to death and rebirth could be performed. Priests may have used the structure to reenact aspects of the Osiris myth. The journey into the structure could represent the descent into the underworld. The central platform could represent rebirth, and the water could represent the transition between states. This would make the Osireion a deeply symbolic structure, not just architecturally, but spiritually. Clearing up misconceptions. Because of its unusual design, the Osireion has attracted many alternative explanations. Some claim it is evidence of a lost civilization. Others suggest it represents advanced technology beyond what we know about ancient Egyptian engineering capabilities. However, there is no reliable archaeological evidence supporting these claims. The structure fits within what we know about Egyptian engineering capabilities. Its differences can be explained through symbolism, design choices, and religious context. That doesn't make it less interesting. In fact, it makes it more meaningful. Because the mystery is not about impossible construction, it's about understanding ancient intentions. Why it still matters. The Osireion reminds us of something important. Even in a civilization as well studied as ancient Egypt, there are still structures that challenge our expectations. Not because they break the rules, but because they were built with different purposes in mind. The Osireion doesn't match what we expect from Egyptian architecture, but that doesn't mean it doesn't belong. It means we still have more to learn. The Osireion is not an anomaly in the sense of being impossible. It is an anomaly in the sense of being misunderstood, a structure that stands apart, not because it doesn't fit, but because we are still learning how to understand it. And perhaps that's the real mystery. If you want more real, evidence-based history, subscribe, because the past still has more to reveal.